His Excellency Haile Mariam Desalegn, co-founder of the African School of Governance and former Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Honorable Joseph Nsengimana, Minister of Education, other ministers of the Republic, the government of the Republic of Rwanda, ambassadors, high commissioners, and members of the diplomatic corps, representatives of international organizations, vice chancellors of universities, CEOs of the private sector, gentlemen of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the grand launch of the African School of Governance, ASG. Welcome to the awakening of the sleeping giant of our continent, Africa. This is an event of profound historical importance. ASG is an accredited Pan-African graduate-level institution offering policy studies dedicated to transforming governance in Africa. Let me begin by paying tribute to the two outstanding and unique African leaders upon whose vision we are gathered here today. His Excellency Paul Kagame, President of the Republic of Rwanda, and His Excellency Haile Mariam Desalegn, former Prime Minister of Ethiopia, both of them co-founders of ASG. Their vision is to develop the next generation of purpose-driven African leaders. That's the vision that they set out to achieve with the establishment of the ASG, to develop the next generation of purpose-driven African leaders with the mindsets, the knowledge, and skills to confront Africa's challenges and capture immense opportunities through creating innovative, homegrown solutions, defining the African narrative while operating at the same time at a world-class level. As the inaugural president of ASG, I am honored to serve as a custodian of this vision and to lead ASG to transform that vision into reality. This requires a collaborative effort with our distinguished governing board that will set strategic direction, our exceptionally qualified executive management team to drive implementation, and our world-class faculty who design and deliver innovative and cutting-edge curricula. Before I proceed, I would like to, with your permission, to invite our executive management team that we have just recruited to enable us to launch this project in reality on the ground, to please stand up to be recognized. Please stand up, the executive team. I would like to recognize the Vice President for Finance and Operations, Mark Nkurunziza. I would like to recognize the Acting Vice President for Academic Affairs, Professor Anna Lucy Nde. I would like to recognize Dr. Lite Nate, the Director of Executive Education and Associate Professor. Lite joins us from INSEAD Business School, where she was teaching strategy. I'd like to recognize Aisatu Dehate, Director of External Affairs. I'd like to recognize Ms. Ngozi Njemanze, my Chief of Staff. Ngozi is a lawyer trained at Harvard Law School. I'd like to recognize Dr. Edward Kadozi, Director of Academic Affairs. Welcome to our new executive team. I thought it important to introduce them so that you will know that it's not just the president that's, managing this ship, and that behind him is a very strong bench of high-level, global, world-class professionals. I would like to thank MasterCard Foundation and the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy at the National University of Singapore, both of whom have been foundation partners for us in the process of the establishment of ASG. Today's grand launch marks the kickoff of our core mission of education, research, and policy engagement. Following the legal accreditation of ASG as a school offering postgraduate degrees in public administration, we are poised to commence student recruitment, student enrollment, starting February 1, 2025. We expect to enroll the first cohort of degree students in early September 2025, and also to commence executive education short courses for policymakers and senior officials. ASG will be a vibrant center of continent-wide thought leadership and global policy engagement. In addition to our degree and executive programs, ASG will establish 4 research centers of global excellence and bring together young leaders and senior leaders through the ASG Young Leaders Program and the Senior Leaders Fellowship Program. ASG is Pan-African in vision and scope. Headquartered in Rwanda, our focus is uniquely continental and indeed global. I have permission to announce that our faculty and speakers, as we unroll and unfold our programs starting in September, will include such prominent African leaders as His Excellency Haile Mariam Desalegn, our co-founder, so he will also be one of our lecturers here. His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, former President of Kenya. His Excellency Ian Khama, former President of Botswana. His Excellency Olusegun Obasanjo, our dear Baba, the former President of Nigeria. His Excellency Goodluck Jonathan, former President of Nigeria, and others. Of course, at the right time, we will be making our request of another great African leader, our host, His Excellency President Paul Kagame. Our programs are highly competitive and enriched by the diverse experiences and perspectives of students drawn from at least 40 countries across the continent. To this end, we will be prospecting for students solely on the basis of professional and academic excellence, merit, and demonstrated leadership qualities. As we begin this momentous journey, I am confident that we will achieve great success in this noble endeavor with the support of our co-founders and all the stakeholders in this room. Let us all work to make this happen and ensure that ASG will catalyze the transformation of African governance and leadership to create stability, security, and shared prosperity for all Africans, and to do so with African agency. Thank you and welcome.
He has given us a look into how the African School of Governance will work and awakening the sleeping giant. As he puts it, indeed, the continent is ready to embrace its destiny with vigor, with renewed resilience and transformative leadership. But we cannot achieve all this without having collaborations as well as strong partnerships which drive meaningful change. One of our partners, MasterCard Foundation, will work with the institution through a shared value within our vision for a more prosperous as well as equitable continent. Now, with a warm round of applause, help me welcome Dr. Peter Materu, Chief Program Officer at the MasterCard Foundation, who is going to also give us his remarks.
So thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. Your Excellency, Prime Minister Hailemariam Desalegn, Honorable Minister Joseph Nsengimana, Minister of Education, Honorable Ministers and senior government officials present here today, distinguished members of the board of the African School of Governance, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Professor Moghalu, President of the African School of Governance, distinguished guests, partners, and friends of Africa. It gives me a profound joy to join you at this launch of the historic institution, the African School of Governance, which is animated by Pan-African commitments and offers real hope to everyday citizens of Africa. Our President and CEO, Rita Roy, would have wanted to be here, but unfortunately she's traveling on business matters. But she sends lots of greetings and love to everyone involved in this. At the Foundation, we are humbled and honored to support the Africa School of Governance promise and purpose. And we would like to express special note of thanks to His Excellency President Paul Kagame, His Excellency Prime Minister Desalegn, for pioneering this crucial work. And a special one also to the people and government of Rwanda for agreeing to host this initiative here. For the next few minutes, please allow me to speak briefly about what excites us, the MasterCard Foundation, the most about this undertaking. Now, as we know, the Africa School of Governance was not conceptualized as just another institution of higher learning in Africa, or as some would put it, as an ivory tower. It is envisioned as a dynamic institution that enables visionary and ethical African leadership, that pursues an Africa-first research agenda, and delivers relevant cutting-edge data, evidence, and solutions to existing development challenges, and to also enable access to opportunities globally that advance the socio-economic transformation of the continent. And as we think about this, a key distinguishing characteristic of this continent, which we all know about, is that this is a continent of young people. Africa is the youngest continent in the world and growing even younger in the coming years. As we know, in the next 25 years, 1 in every 4 people, a quarter of the world, will be African. And we see this as a tremendous opportunity. It means that today, and even more so in the future, young people in Africa will be the talent, the leaders, the innovators, not just for Africa, but for the entire world. And what's exciting is that the Africa School of Governance vision recognizes this opportunity, as it will invest in capacities and leadership of young people in Africa, as it will equip young people to lead, to serve, and to shape policy, and most importantly, practices and mindsets in their diverse contexts. And it will invest in designing and driving policy solutions to the single most important pressing issue facing African young people, that is access to dignified and fulfilling work. And we know, very excitingly, that it will do so while fostering pride in the rich culture and history of the continent, and build self-confidence in the abilities of the continent to set the bar for global practices. That is what inspired us to get behind this incredible mission. At the Mastercard Foundation, we are Youth and Africa First. Yes, we are a Canada-registered foundation, but we decided early on to focus our philanthropic work on one region, Africa, because of the need, but most importantly, because of the promise it offers. And in 2018, we decided to double down on this commitment through the launch of our new strategy, Young Africa Works, that set an ambitious target of 30 million young people in dignified and fulfilling work by 2030, especially young women. And our strategy, we work with governments, the private sector, academic institutions, civil society, and young people themselves to ensure that learners have the skills to succeed in the workforce, and entrepreneurs have the tools and enabling environment to innovate and create new jobs. And we've made tremendous progress in this to date. It's about 5 years, 6 years since we started, building and launching new initiatives that have already equipped over 50 million young people with skills to enable them access dignified and fulfilling work. And millions of them have already done so. We are convinced that the Africa School of Governance mission and work is catalytic to the mission of the foundation. And we see it as a way of accelerating the progress that the foundation has initiated and enabling improvements in the lives of millions of young people more in Africa in a sustainable manner. And we are thrilled to be part of this journey. So we'd like to say, first of all, congratulations to the Africa School of Governance board and leadership on the progress made so far. And looking around this room, we see many supporters and advocates of this work. We'd like to encourage each and every one of us here to step forward and support the Africa School of Governance leadership as they work to realize the mandate and the mission of this vital institution for Africa and for its young people. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your remarks, Dr. Peter Materu. And we are very, very delighted to have the Mastercard Foundation as a partner, and we all work together to drive change. During his remarks earlier on, Professor Kingsley did introduce some of the team members within the institution who are working together, bringing their diverse expertise and unwavering dedication to achieving this bold vision. We're now going to watch a video message from the chairman of the African School of Governing, the governing body chairman, Mr. Makhtar Diop, the managing director, the International Finance Corporation. If we could all kindly turn our attention to the screen.
Excellency Haile Mariam Desalegn, honorable ministers, members of the diplomatic community, esteemed academics, and distinguished guests. It's a pleasure to join you virtually for the launch of the African School of Governance. Unfortunately, I cannot attend in person due to prior engagement, but I'm delighted to be part of this significant moment. I would like to thank His Excellency President Kagame for his remarkable leadership in establishing this school. As it had been documented and discussed, development is largely about good and sound governance. To become a sustained reality, this governance requires the right people in leadership positions equipped with deep technical knowledge of the issues to be addressed. These issues in Africa are about public investment, growth-enhancing policies, and creating an appropriate private investment environment. There must also be leaders with the right set of values and integrity, who are ready to learn, adapt, and integrate the best of what the world has to offer. That's why we need African leaders who can learn from each other, successes and failure alike, and that's why this school is all about. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Dessalines and the strong support of President Kagame, we will be able to build this missing instrument and establish strong institutions that put our continent on the path to high and inclusive growth. I would like once again to thank President Kagame for his vision for Africa's future and his dedication to education and governance. We look forward to collaborating closely with the African School of Governance to help shape tomorrow's leader.
Working together to shape tomorrow's leaders. We are now going to hear remarks from a visionary leader, passionate advocate for equitable access to education, and a dedicated champion of innovation and growth in Rwanda's education sector. Help me welcome Rwanda's Minister of Education, Honorable Joseph Nsengimana, to the podium to
Your Excellency Haile Mariam Desalegn, co-founder of African School of Governance, alongside our President, His Excellency Paul Kagame. Mr. Maktar Diop, Chairman of ASG Governing Board. Professor Kingsley Moghalu, President of African School of Governance. Honorable Ministers and Member of Cabinet here present, Excellence Ambassadors and members of the Diplomatic Corps here present, Dr. Peter Materu, Chief Program Officer of the MasterCard Foundation, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my distinct honor and privilege to address you today at the launch of the Africa School of Governance. On behalf of the government of Rwanda, I extend a warm welcome to all distinguished guests who have gathered here for this momentous occasion. As the government of Rwanda and the Ministry of Education, we are deeply proud to host this remarkable institution, which is poised to become a center of excellence in leadership and governance across the African continent. Rwanda's own journey stands as testament to our visionary governance, ethical leadership, and steadfast commitment to progress can achieve. From the ashes of adversity, we have built a nation that champions unity, innovation, and sustainable development. The African School of Governance has found a natural home here in Rwanda, a country that embodies the core principle these institutions aim to nurture. Welcoming the African School of Governance is not only a great honor for us, but also a collective responsibility to shape Africa's future by investing in the leaders of tomorrow. The challenges facing Africa today range from economic inequalities and climate change to issues of social justices, and they are undeniably complex. Yet, with the right leadership, grounded in integrity and guided by strong values, these challenges can be transformed into remarkable opportunities. Rwanda's progress demonstrates the transformative potential of good governance. By fostering accountability, prioritizing the well-being of our citizens, and embracing innovative solutions, we have shown that leadership rooted in integrity can elevate not only the nation, but the entire region. This is why institutions like the African School of Governance are so crucial. They serve as an incubators for ethical leaders who can drive sustainable and inclusive development across the continent and the globe at large. The African School of Governance is more than a university. It is the beacon of hope for the African's future. It represents a commitment to nurturing leaders who are not only intellectually equipped, but also deeply attuned to the realities and aspirations of the people they serve. ASG's vision resonates deeply with our government's priorities as we strive to create systems that are transparent, resilient, and people-centered. We recognize the value of an institution that prioritizes critical thinking, collaboration, and ethical governance. This launch is a call to action for all of us, government, private sectors, development partners, and civil society. It is an opportunity to come together to support ASG in its mission to shape a new generation of African leaders who will rise to meet the challenges of tomorrow with courage and conviction. As we inaugurate the African School of Governance today, let us celebrate not only its opening, but also the promise it holds for our continent. Together, let us invest in leadership that will steer Africa towards a future of prosperity, peace, and global influence. Congratulations to the African School of Governance team, its founders, and all who have made this vision a reality. Rwanda is proud to be your partner on this journey, and we stand ready to support you in every way possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Joseph, for your remarks. A call to action for each and every person here in this room. We all have a role to play. We can all work together, bridge the gaps, as well as unlock the immense potential that lie within the African continent. We're now delighted to have with us our keynote speaker, the former Prime Minister of Ethiopia. He is the co-founder of ASG and Guardian ASG Foundation. Help me welcome to the podium to deliver his remarks, His Excellency Haile Mariam Desalegn.
Thank you very much, Fiona, for steering the program very well. Excellencies, honorable ministers, members of the diplomatic corps, partners and friends, African School of Government's board members, African School of Government Foundation Council members, ASG Advisory Group members, ASG leadership and staff. Thank you for joining us for this launch of the African School of Governance, and I'm pleased to see so many of you gathered here today as we give life to an idea that's long overdue. Your Excellencies, sisters and brothers, Africa is a continent rich in history, innovation, culture, people, and resources, which has contributed greatly to the world over centuries. As a cradle of humanity, Africa gave birth to great civilizations and initiated advances in astronomy, engineering, medicine, philosophy, poetry, alphabets, and many other fields such as governance, with the world's first nation-states, all of which have helped develop the world as we know it today. Tragically, much of this historical account of our continent has been erased and lost, and the new narrative of poverty, destitution, dependence, and mismanagement has emerged as a dominant description of Africa. Everywhere you look, Africa's more recent history of governance resembles, mimicking, and is still dominated by remnants of the age of exploration and the slave trade and colonial era, which led to disintegration of many of these civilizations and a long period of stagnation or even degradation, which, while much of the rest of the world has surged ahead in their development. In particular, while global prosperity has surged over the last 40 years, African economies have declined and stagnated at the best, increasing those living in poverty from 285 million in 1990 to 458 million in 2024, or 1/3 of our people. Is it any wonder that the dominant narratives emerging from public policy schools, media, and policy arenas around the world therefore depict Africa as troubled and destitute, far behind more developed societies of the North, West, East, and others in the global South? And indeed, Africa today lags the rest of the world in many development indicators, reinforcing these perspectives. On many accounts, it is a narrative not just from those outside of Africa, but a shared narrative that many Africans have come to accept ourselves, perpetuated by an era and class of Africans disconnected from our historical past. Distinguished participants, colleagues, and friends, the school, therefore, emerged from a shared view of His Excellency President Paul Kagame, myself, and several other African leaders advocating the motto, "Leadership Matters." And one of the greatest things holding Africa back is a clear deficit in leadership that is fit for the purpose. We have seen many examples in the world of how leadership matters and is transformative in driving sustainable development at scale. In Africa, too often, we see examples of leadership failures that lead to missed opportunities, lack of vision or strategies to deliver results, and even backsliding after periods of some gains. We believe that sustained periods of negative narratives about Africa have had their effect, including on the collective self-esteem of some of African societies, including the mindset of the African elites that have emerged as our leaders. For example, in place of patriotism and selfless commitment to the people, too many leaders associate the good things in life with places, goods, and ideas outside the continent, and they often aspire to positions of power only to enrich themselves and their close families or cronies. The mindsets, qualities, and capabilities of some of our leaders, technocrats, and professionals are often and easily influenced by external interests, and in some cases affected by underly interferences and attempts of neocolonialism. And as a result, institutions and governance systems are weak, corrupt, resulting in slow and sustained sluggish economic growth and development, insecurity, and increased radicalization of the youth, and ultimately stagnation or degradation. These caused countries to grapple with combinations of poor stability and insecurity, political, economic, social, and environmental stresses to prevail. Africa has so much more to give to its own people and the world, and it is time to build forward once again to this greatness and the continent's full potential. A critical first step is to start by building back an understanding and appreciation of Africa's history, political economy, and contributions and empowered mindsets in its leaders. On top of these new solid foundations, leaders can then harness the best technical tools, policies, skills, and knowledge to shape Africa's trajectory and make this indeed Africa's century. A generational effort is needed to continuously strengthen African leadership and policy frameworks that will drive progress and steward the continent's destiny and place in the world. A new critical mass of servant leaders and countries showing progress through this mindset and improved governance can inspire a virtuous cycle of progress by others, as has been seen in other regions. Excellencies, distinguished leaders, and partners. The African School of Governance is designed to address these in most practical and effective way. When we decided on the African School of Governance, His Excellency President Paul Kagame and I started working on this effort nearly 3 years ago with the vision of developing a new generation and critical mass of purpose-driven African leaders that can help take on the continent's greatest challenge and seize new opportunities. Working together with some of the preeminent African and global leaders of our time, we have brought together a vision for the African School of Governance and its place in the world. Our aim has been to create a uniquely African, independent institution with world-class standards to train public leaders that are rooted and committed to serve the well-being of their people. ASG will not be just another version of the world's leading schools of government and public policy. We already have graduates from them, whether from Harvard, Oxford, LSE, or beyond. Too often, we have sent our best and brightest minds overseas to be trained at these very prestigious schools, but have returned trained in their world view and mindset that fail to deliver for Africa. We want ASG to be the school that produces leaders who properly understands African history and political economy at different journeys traveled and challenges encountered to then forge appropriate African priorities of the future with a confident African mindset. ASG will not be affiliated with any particular government, political philosophy, or political movement. We want ASG to be a school where faculty, staff, and students are independent to define their own ideas and issues to rally around that matter for progress in their communities, countries, and the continent. ASG will not be a school purely for training public sector leaders and members of the civil service or political parties, but we want ASG to be the school that will train many of the regions and the world's best future leaders in public service, primarily in government and policy, but also in private sector, security, media, civil society, and research. Today is therefore an important milestone. Following this recent formal accreditation on January the 6th by the higher education authorities of the government of Rwanda, ASG is now its own formal institution. Colleagues, friends, and partners. Through ASG, our mission is to develop and nurture new and selfless leaders to drive Africa's shared and sustained development. As a school, we'll provide 3 primary programs. Number 1, innovative public policy education and trainings, which focus on developing leadership skills, governance expertise, and real-world problem-solving capabilities This will include a range of degree and non-degree programs, including a master's degree, executive master's degree, and a range of executive education and training courses for leaders ready to enhance their knowledge and skill on the job. Number two, cutting-edge research, which will inform policy and governance decisions, focusing on African priorities such as political economy perspectives, regional integration, government delivery capabilities, and homegrown policy innovations and formulations. Number three, a platform for public policy engagement, which will inform policy and governance decisions, focusing on African priorities such as political economy. So, our recently appointed president and his team have been given a mandate to bring this vision and efforts to life under the guidance of inaugural board, but it is worth stressing why these efforts are so important for Africa and what it will look like when we are successful. Three reasons stand out among so many possibilities. The first, ASG will offer a forum for the key debates and research required regarding how we improve Africa's reality. In this case, like domestic stability in countries of unrest, regional integration, value addition, and getting greatest benefit from natural endowments we have, climate change in Africa, Africa's view on emerging innovations such as AI and biotechnology, and among others, these are the points that can be seen. The school will provide a chance for homegrown thinking, evidence-based policy solutions, and peer-to-peer learning in targeting Africa's key gaps, questions, and needs, as well as South-South learning and best practices. Second, ASG will specialize in what it takes to cultivate the mindset for self-empowered servant leaders that can once again deliver the best results for African people and the world. Third, ASG will be a fount of many birds for generations to come, including hundreds and even thousands of innovations, ideas, homegrown solutions, and purpose-driven leaders. Excellencies, colleagues, and friends, it has already taken the contributions of so many leaders, institutions, and networks to reach this launch moment today. I want to take time to appreciate these contributions, as well as introducing a few of these leaders that will now be in the lead as we move forward. Our earliest efforts started with the ASG Advisory Group, who gave their time and ideas to shape the school's vision and priorities. Several members of this advisory group are in the room today. Dr. Donald Kabaruka, Dr. Agnes Kalibata, Dr. Achaleke, Professor Celestine Monga, Professor Hajer Guldich, and Mr. Fred Swaniker, to mention some of them here. After we established the vision and long-term strategy for the school, we then formed the ASG Foundation Council to steward this vision and strategy and help mobilize sustainable resources for its future. I am pleased to serve as the guardian for this council, as well as to be joined by several members in the room today. Again, Dr. Kabaruka, Dr. Kalibata, Francis Gatare, and Adam Gersteinmer. Our focus going forward is to bring this bold vision to life. Key to this effort will be ASG's inaugural board of directors, which was named at the end of last year and will begin this effort immediately following the recent accreditation. We are privileged that this board will be chaired by Mr. Mokhtar Diop, which has made a speech, and benefit from the incredible servant leadership of Donald Kabaruka, Hajar Gulchej, Kishore Mahubani, and Francis Gattari. This board will work to support the core leadership of the school, where we are so pleased to have secured the leadership of our inaugural president of the African School of Governance, Professor Kingsley Magul. Professor Magul is not only a globally recognized leader in governance, public policy, and economic transformation with practical experience in national and global governance. He is also a leader who exhibits and champions the ASG vision and mindset. Professor Magulu is building a team of faculty and staff, which he introduced the executive organ, who share this vision, mindset, and commitment, and who will be the driving force for change for all those who attend the school and benefit from its programs. Even as ASG is just getting started in its programs, we must recognize a few partners who are playing a central role in our foundations and earliest steps of the ASG journey. We wish to recognize the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, whom we are working with as an early partner of choice in developing and designing our strategy, programs, and operations. They have been able to build a school that is uniquely Asian, while still living up to the standards of the world-class public policy school. It is a proof of concept of what's possible, and we want to learn from them as we design our own school tailored to Africa's unique values and priorities. We wish to recognize and appreciate the MasterCard Foundation, represented here today by Dr. Peter Maturi. The foundation recognized and embraced the vision, as he made in his speech, for ASG, and through their strategic partnership and financial contribution, they are enabling ASG to boldly launch its programs over the coming years. And finally, we wish to recognize the government of Rwanda for its support, particularly the Ministry of Education Minister and his Higher Education Council for working with us on the journey to accreditation. They have been very good partners to work with in this journey, and we look forward to do many opportunities to collaborate over the years ahead as ASG delivers its programs from its main campus here in Kigali. Colleagues, friends, and partners, I trust my remarks today have made clear the need for the African School of Governance is compelling. It's clear and immense. And we are just beginning this journey. In the face of the current crisis, Africa must seize this opportunity to make this truly African century. And all of the individuals and the institutions I have mentioned are serving our collective vision, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. In addition to them, many other partners and stakeholders will need to be closely engaged across Africa and in the regions of the world to ensure this vision is successfully turned into a reality. Please know that ASG is ready to work with and forge partnerships with all parts of the community for their contributions to this vision. So thank you for joining us in this journey, and we look forward to conversations with all of you regarding what we can do together. We appeal particularly to students ready to study at ASG. For those Africans who feel discontent with the current state of the continent and its narrative, we encourage you to embrace ASG as a home for you to cultivate the mindset, knowledge, skills, and networks for a life of purpose-driven leadership that can significantly improve the trajectory of the continent. We want you to apply to our programs. You can be assured that the school will admit the best students, predominantly African, but also a percentage of global leaders with a heart and mind for Africa who align with and can contribute to its vision. Admissions will be need blind without consideration of ability to pay. We therefore also appeal to leaders and institutions to financially support ASG. The success of ASG will depend on the overall support that it mobilizes through partners across the region and the world. It will particularly require resources to support many of the best students to engage in ASG's programs, even when they have financial needs. Resources will also be used in alignment with ASG's business plan to bring together world-class faculty and staff, advanced research centers and initiatives, and enable policy engagement in the most important issues for the continent today and in the future. African leaders and the private sector must play a particularly strong role in funding this institution and its vision. As such, transformative African initiatives must be supported by our leaders as well. We want to see the people talking about African solution to African problem when Africans fund this institution. We appeal to the best and most motivated faculty and staff. As we build this school, we will rely on gifted leaders who embrace this vision to join the institution and bring ASG to life with us. We will give fair and competitive compensation and benefits. We will give an independent and exciting academic environment for advancing ideas and new initiatives. And we will offer the greatest payoff, well beyond our peers, in terms of opportunities for long-term impact for the African continent and its people. Our vision is admittedly big, as we seek nothing less than reclaiming Africa's heritage and African renaissance, the greatness of our people, and Africa's rightful place in the global leadership. Only the best of Africa and the best of the world can generate the type of purpose-driven transformational leadership that we are seeking. Through ASG, we will cultivate new generations of leaders that celebrate excellence and drive continuous progress. With this, I thank you, and God bless Africa.
For those inspiring and very strong remarks. To just echo some of the words that you've just said, the solution is for Africa's unique challenges. It lies within us as Africans, within us as every person who is in this room. The establishment of this institution is confidence in its people, brings forth hope. As His Excellency said, we want to tap and harness the creativity, the energy, and the resilience of young people. We are really building a legacy of change. We are empowering young leaders to turn ideas into actions and inspire the world with African-grown solutions. Let's give His Excellency another warm round of applause. He has given us a breakdown of more details about ASG, but we'll also be screening a QR code. Please do scan the QR code to get more information about the institution, about student recruitments, about also the programs that will be offered. The QR code will be put on the screen from time to time. You can also visit the ASG website. We're now going to transition and dive into a more exciting conversation. We've had very inspiring remarks about how do we walk the talk? How do we move from where we are? We are going to have a high-level panel discussion. We'll explore how our homegrown solutions are not only addressing local challenges, but how will they also be shaping global conversations on governance, on policy innovation, and inclusive development. Now, to continue with this session, help me welcome the moderator, Larry Mado, CNN journalist. Here he is. Let's welcome him and escort him as he comes to the podium with a warm round.
Not every day you see a new university getting launched and you're here on day one. It's happening. So are you excited? Fantastic. My name is Larry Mado. I'm an international correspondent at CNN. My day-to-day job is influencing and changing how they see us, how the world sees us as Africans. And that's why I'm so excited about this, the launch of the African School of Governance, a public policy school for Africans by Africans rooted in African contexts. I think that is something that is worth celebrating, and so let's get straight into it. We've heard some of the details about need-blind students, about the programs and the faculty, which I'm all excited about. So let's kind of get a few more details. This is titled African Solutions Global Impact, Leading the Way in Public Policy Education and Transformative Governance. So to introduce my panel, please welcome back His Excellency Haile Mariam Desalegn, former Prime Minister of Ethiopia and co-founder of ASG at McKinsey Africa. And from the ASG board, Professor Hajar Geldich, Legal Counsel of the African Union and a former professor at the University of Carthage in Tunisia. All right, you know what? This is my bad. I missed another member of the ASG board, Dr. Donald Kaberuka, former president of the African Development Bank. Please join us on the stage. We would love it if you give us a comment or two, sir. Please join us on the stage. I have twisted his arm and he agreed. Thank you, sir. Your Excellency, you mentioned the faculty, you mentioned what the thinking around this university is. I know that you will be popping into the class to teach. Have you given any thought about what you might be teaching?
Yeah,
it's working.
Yeah, thank you very much, Larry. I think I'm very much excited. 3 years ago, it has been a little blurry when we started this vision, but now it's refined with the support of many, especially President Paul Kagame, who set the stage properly for us to envision this school of governance, because we always say that leadership is key for any transformation in any continent, in any place. But yeah, I was in academia, so teaching is not a problem for me. I'm sure I will teach what I learned from my experience throughout, in the leadership position.
Right.
I was in politics for the last 30 years, so I do have a wealth of experience. So that brings much more things than just academia. People can read, they can research, but they can't get what's practically happening on the ground. So that is the contribution I can make.
You talk a lot about the leadership deficit we have on the continent, and what kind of mindset do you think the leaders that will go through ASG need to cultivate? What will you be trying to teach them that they go back to their countries and transform those countries?
Yes, I think there is a need for a frank and candid discussion in this regard. I mean, we have been hiding ourselves in some political jargons and trying to, avoid the real discourse and discussion on governance and leadership. I mean, we can see even our donors are telling us that, yeah, we'll go for NGOs to support you because African governance system is corrupt. So what else is dehumiliating yourself when you hear these kind of things being told to a leader of a country? So I think this should eat us up from inside. And that has to bring, some kind of patriotism within us. How can we be humiliated like this? So I think that kind of mindset comes, of course, should be a process to bring about this kind of mindset, to be patriotic, to be selfless leader, to sacrifice. This is not new to Africa. Our young leaders during decolonizing Africa has sacrificed themselves. But the bad thing is they didn't continue with that. They started mimicking, our colonial masters' political economy in the countries.
So our liberators became like our colonizers.
Exactly. So we should have started our African way. And African, it's always shame for somebody to steal. This is our culture in Africa. But now it's not shame to steal. And we should come back to our African culture, where it's shame, it's dehumanizing yourself by stealing from somebody's property. So this is people's property and you are stealing it. So you have to stop that. So where a little progress we see in Africa is where there are leaders who are, selfless and who are not corrupt, who are not embezzling, who are not nepotic, who are not supporting their own families and cronies. And that's how it happened. So that mindset is important. I can give you one example. If you ask a herds boy in Ethiopia, and he will say that I fought the Italians and we won. And so we are not colonized. So that mindset, even though it has brought infighting within ourselves, but it has brought some kind of confidence on the minds and life of that little kid in Ethiopia. So I think narratives should change. And some of the narratives which are out there are not truly, African reality. We have other face as well. We are not always corrupt. There are many good things in Africa that has happened. We were the pioneers of all civilizations. Do you know that? Europe has taken best technologies from Africa. It was the Egyptian mathematicians who made the pyramid as precise as it is now. Even with the current technology, that precision, you can't imagine. That was made by Africans. By the time Europe didn't have any kind of technology and civilization. And history tells us that it was 6,000 years ago that African civilization started. And after that, after 6,000 years, you see the Chinese civilization, the Indian civilization, the Mesopotamian civilization. No Africans are talking about this. This brings confidence to us. We are not inferior. We were the ones who invented medicine. The mummification of the Egyptian tomb, body in the tomb, which we see now, the human body existing until now, is a medicine that is used by Africans. So we contribute to the global astronomy. We contributed to alphabets. You see, all the alphabets were designed in Africa. So what happened to us now? I think we have to bring African Renaissance now. That's the whole point. Without this mindset, only teaching techniques and knowledge and the skills doesn't work. So I think this school is unique because we want to build that mindset into the African leaders.
Thank you. You can see how passionate he is about the subject, where he's a co-founder of the school. So please sign up early for Professor Desaleign's class. It's going to fill up quickly. There will be a wait list. So as soon as it's available, I encourage you to sign up before all the spots are gone. Professor Hajar, the African voice has been missing from global debates, even about those that concern us as Africans. How can the African School of Governance help make sure that our voices are better heard, that we have agency over our own governance, but also just our own destiny as Africans?
Thank you so much. Working?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So congratulations, number one, for this wonderful idea that comes true. Congratulations for the people of Africa, and especially for the Rwandese, but the roots and the idea comes from here with His Excellency Kagame. Number two, concerning your voice and your question, very relevant. As we have an agenda, Agenda 2063, we need that African people can be united and can be consolidated. How this voice can be common if we do not prepare it, prepare the new generation, prepare the new leaders, and disseminate the knowledge that Africa is one. And if we gather our efforts, we will be more strong and powerful. I think with this School of Governance, we have to disseminate, number one, the Pan-Africanism. This is a huge idea. This is a theory, this is a concept, this is a practice with our leaders, such Nkrumah, such Ngor, such His Excellency the Emperor of Ethiopia, and much others. The people of Africa now, the young generation, do not know them. Mandela, Jamal Abdel Nasser, Bourguiba, all these kind of Pan-Africanism should be disseminated with such a school that will gather the whole Africa on the same vision and the same mission. And once we have this knowledge, once we believe in this Pan-Africanism, we can go to the world and have this voice united, and we can bring our interests, and we can define our interests. And this is really what the Agenda 2063 means, that we have our voice united, and this is also something that should be prepared.
I know the African Union and many of us like to say African solutions for African problems, but is this just a tagline, or can we actually actualize that? Can we really provide African solutions for African problems?
Our young generation are very well connected today with internet and all this mass media. We have also to get inspired from the world and to have the best practices from the world and come back with our own originality, our own ideas. So yes, African solutions for African problems, however, it should be updated, as you said, because we need also to gather the knowledge from all over the world. Maybe with this, our African School of Governance, we need our teachers and professors. However, it is kind and fine also to be inspired from the best practices in the world, from the different states who win and who are leaders in their domain. So I think, number one, we need to know ourselves, as said His Excellency Aliema. We need to know our civilization, our history, our roots. However, we also need to be connected to the world and to know what is up to date nowadays in different skills and knowledge. And so after that, we can bring with our touch, with our root, with our spirit, and with our own knowledge. And this is possible if we do prepare again our new generation on that.
All right, thanks a lot. Dr. Kaberuka, thank you for allowing me to twist your arm to join the panel. You're on the ASG board, and you have had an accomplished career internationally. Often, a lot of the thinking around public policy in Africa is influenced by external agendas, and sometimes is very much a copy and paste system. So how can the ASG transform governance through being locally relevant and internationally excellent?
Thank you.
There.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
No, you did not twist my arm, please. I apologize. It's because I saw you have got such an illustrious panel that I thought I had little value to add to.
That's not true.
Anyway, first of all, let me say congratulations to everyone who have been involved in this exercise, beginning with our president, and Prime Minister Haile Mariam. Thank you very much for thinking about this. Number two, to all the partners who have supported this. The Likwa New School, I can say the MasterCard Foundation, thank you very much. And all the leaders who have been involved, Sia Chaleke, Anna, Kingsley, thank you very much for what you have done. I'm on the board, so I think I should say as little as possible so I can learn from you guys. I just wanted to say two things, if that is worth. Leadership and governance is not simply an African problem. It is a global problem. I think the world today is in a serious short measure about leadership and governance. It's not an African problem. And so I'm hoping that the African School of Governance is not about figuring out how to correct things we have done wrong, which we need to do right. It's about how we can contribute to a new landscape globally. Thank you. There are some things we Africans have got wrong, that is a fact. But as you say, PM, there are many things we have done right. But so is Asia, so is Latin America, so is Europe, so is the US, so is everywhere. So as all of us today in the world struggle about what kind of world do we want to create, the challenge of this school is to be part of that conversation. Yes, of course, we have issues of corruption, of governance, of conflict, of bad leadership. We accept that. All right? But I'm one of those who are very skeptical that actually our governance deficit is any less than I've seen in Latin America, or Asia, or the Middle East, Europe, or even North America. And so I think for us, for this School of Governance, is how do we project our view of the world in the new landscape? If we do that, we shall have done service to Africa and the world. That is the first point I want to make.
I'm sorry, before you make the second point. So you're saying that African leaders are not any more corrupt than North American leaders or European leaders or Asian leaders. There's just more attention.
You're putting words in my mouth. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I'm not about to give a corruption scorecard here. No. I'm saying we have had a situation since 1945 where attempt to shape a global order has progressively faced huge amounts of deficits everywhere from different levels. Do you know, there was a time when Latin America was described as a land of hyperinflation, putsch, all kinds of issues were described in Latin America.
Right.
There was a time when Southeast Asia was described like that. There was a time when Vietnam was described as a land of boat people running from Vietnam. As I've said here before, I think Gacha was there. Now Vietnam is an economy which has gone from $15 billion GDP in 1994 to $500 billion. So I'm trying to be helpful, sir. You said I should be helpful. Our School of Governance must begin from the viewpoint that we accept things we have done wrong.
Right.
We recognize the direction of travel. This is what we intend to do for ourselves. But this is our view of the world. We're not about here to be on the defensive and we have done things wrong and therefore we need to get things right. No. That is my concern. Now, my second point, and I'm really glad to see very illustrious people here to help us. In the 1960s, if you ask many people in the world, what does Africa need? They will tell you Africa needs money, it needs capital. And so aid organizations were created, international institutions were created to provide this capital to Africa. By the time I was doing my master's degree, which a long time ago, you can see my age, the speeches had changed. They said that Africa does not need just money, it needs good policies. But what are good policies? Whose policies? So we ended up with policies as defined by the neoliberal establishment in the West. So yes, we needed good policies, obviously, but whose policies? Who defines those policies? By the time I was finishing my doctorate, the narrative had changed. It was no longer about policy. It was, no. The problem with Africa is it has no execution capacity. Okay, so building capacity. So the like of McKinsey were very busy building capacity. Now, I agree, we needed capital, we needed policies, and we needed capacity. Sure. By the time I began my career, there was now the new narrative. No. Now we need governance. And later, we need institutions. The problem is, all those things are needed. You need capital, you need policy, you need execution, you need governance, you need institutions. But the problem is, who defines the content? And please forgive me for saying this. I don't know how to say this to you. I made one of the biggest mistakes of my long career. When I left the African Development Bank, I got convinced to spend 2 years in a Western school of governance. Very famous. So I will not mention the name. But some people in this room met me there, so.
We had several lunches.
To be honest, after 1 year, I was totally convinced I made a wrong choice. I said, no, this is not my place. Because it was about a place where you go to and they bring these bright African students, fantastic guys. And they said to them, look, we are who we are. This is how we do things. We are the best in the world. So go out there and do what we do and you'll be fine. And I could not agree with that. And so I was happy to leave. And so when I see a school like this being founded, I have very high hopes and aspirations. I have to play my role as a board member to try to do this. But please, let us not begin on the foundations that somehow Africa is an exception in the world in terms of the governance deficit or leadership deficit. There are many things happening in the world today, outside Africa, which frankly are something we all must work together to change. And must be part of that conversation. This is what I wanted to say, sir, and you didn't force me to come here, so.
Thank you. I feel like I'll circle back. This is January, the month of circling back, to some of the things you mentioned, but Dr. Achaleke has been adversely mentioned. And so this is a good point to bring you in because you've been involved from the ground floor in helping the strategy for the African School of Governance. Why was McKinsey involved with this?
Well, can you hear me? So yes. Okay, there we go. First, very excited to be here and very proud actually. And actually this morning I went back and I was looking at my messages and it was September 6, 2022, I don't know if you remember, Your Excellency, when His Excellency called me and said, him and President Kagame had an idea of setting up this school of government policy and would McKinsey be involved? I just said yes. I had no idea what involvement meant. But I said, we absolutely would be happy to do that. And that's because we really believe that, yes, part of our job is to help build capacity, but part of our job here on the continent is to really contribute to Africa's economic transformation. And having served a lot of government institutions across the continent, we realized that one of the biggest bottlenecks we have in Africa is the inability of many of our governments to actually execute. Of course, not in Rwanda, but across the continent, that's a big issue we have. And so we found that this could be a tool to help transform our public sector leaders. And that's why we got excited about it. I remember working with Francis and Adam from the beginning, getting the support from the MasterCard Foundation to then do the strategy and the plan for the school. And literally working for 2 years with a bunch of different partners to help build it. So we're very excited about that. And when I look at Professor Mugalu and especially the team he's built around him, and just 2 years later, a bit over 2 years later, we are here today, I couldn't be any prouder.
Oh, fantastic. Dr. Kalibata, I think Dr. Kaberuka has already told us not to begin with the foundation or the premise that Africa is any greater in deficit of leadership or governance than any other part of the world. But as you're involved with this, what would you consider the top priorities for students coming here, for the faculty, as this is getting off the ground?
Thank you. And I wanted to really start by congratulating you, Your Excellency. That was a powerful speech. That was a really very strong way of taking us off the ground. I wanted to add something to the list you gave us, Donald, and what I wanted to add is about Africa needs, what's the word? Identity, self-identity. Every time I look at how we send our children out into the world, and the world is big, from Poland to where, did I say Poland? No, sorry. Think of the Arctic to the Antarctic. So much world in there, and our children are out there. And then they come back. Who are they? I feel like we need a mechanism of recentering and always coming back to who we are as a people. We cannot lose ourselves to the rest of the world. The rest of the world needs to find us. And I feel that bit we keep giving away. As a result, when we start designing solutions, we don't anchor them in who we are. Just to give you an example, the best example of anchoring solutions in who we are is about 20 years ago when in Rwanda we launched the One Cow Per Poor Family Program. If you ever try to understand what that was about, it was about going deep into people's culture and understanding how their economic values are tied to who they are capturing. I really sometimes feel terrible when I want to tell people some of the things I learned from I learned from Rwanda, and I can't communicate to them. Donald, how do you tell people Akimwana Kazimvurihis so that they can feel empowered that their solutions are just within them before they look elsewhere? But I don't know how to say it in the languages we've acquired out there. So I just want to be able to make sure that we can connect. We need that way. We'll start building a Caribbean people that starts with themselves, that starts with the needs of their communities, right? And that when we bring solutions to our people, we are actually solving for those problems. But I wanted to say something else. The next thing I think that we need in the future leaders of our continent, as we design the Africa School of Government, we need people that can work with the rest of the world, right? But the rest of the world, again, brings complexity, and some of the challenges we are trying to solve are complex. So the ability to internalize and engage in the complexity, but break it down in ways that we can still deliver, the ability to be agile. So I look at you as the first person who is going to help us take this forward, and I'm like, we have so much expectation in trying to build, in helping us as a continent to build those leaders. Let me say the last one is about decolonizing our minds. So the colonization ended over 50 years ago, right? But it's today, you walk in places and ask yourself, why is this teacher, the primary teacher, the main teacher, some nationality, and why is the secondary teacher an African? I ask myself that are teaching our children. I see this in some places, in many places, and you ask yourself, why do we even accept things like this? Why are we telling our children that an African teacher cannot be a main teacher? When you continue building on that, what type of society do we build? So I do feel excited because this is an opportunity for us to recalibrate, build a society that can put people out there that can actually say no and yes to the world based on the grounding that comes from who we are as a people. And we have a lot to bring, and many of you have already said it.
It's such a powerful statement about decolonizing our minds, and I think that's something that a lot of us fight, even those of us who were not born during colonization, but you still see the tentacles of that today, and it's tied to your first point about identity and how often our identity is defined by others. So thank you for saying that. Dr. Moghalu, you described this as a legacy project, launching the African School of Governance, which is almost an impossible task, trying to recruit students and get faculty and get the building ready and classes and everything. How's it going? Are you sleeping well?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I am. It's tough going, but it's going well. First of all, it's the honor of my life to have this responsibility, because I've always been from childhood a strong believer in Africa and Africa's possibilities. So I'd like to thank His Excellency President Kagame, Prime Minister Haile Mariam, and all the others in the formation of ASG, Francis Gattari, and others, who gave me the opportunity to serve in this role. I remember my first meeting with Prime Minister Haile Mariam at Lake Como. That was about 5 years ago. And we were there discussing the Asian aspiration. How did Asia transform itself? He was co-chairman of the event with President Obasanjo and President Bai Koroma of Sierra Leone. Very interesting. I remember also my several lunches with my brother Donald Kaberuka in Cambridge when he was at this school. That
shall remain nameless.
That shall remain nameless. And I was a professor at another school very close by, and I can name it, the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University. So it's great to be here working with so many brilliant people. The secret, there are three things that I want to say in terms of how I will approach, or I am approaching, the task I have been given as the custodian of this vision of our two excellencies and how to bring it to life. The first is to make a strategic choice, and I have made that choice. We will succeed. Number one, there's no room for failure. We will make it. That's the first thing you do, the strategic choice. I've made that choice. That choice is the choice of success. The second choice that I have made, and that is essential for success, is to build the team. Because nobody succeeds alone. And so my first task was to identify who will work with me and all of us in this journey as a team, and multiply all our strengths and cover up our weaknesses, because we all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. So I'm very proud of the executive team that we have assembled, and I have introduced them earlier. Very proud of the board that has been formed by the founders, and of course very inspired by the founders themselves. The third executive team that I have that is about the importance of stakeholder engagement of the board that has been formed by the founders, and of course very inspired by the founders themselves. Leaning on the third executive team that I have this project is about the importance of stakeholder engagement of the board that has been formed by the founders, and of course very inspired by the founders themselves. Leaning on the third executive team that I have this project is about the importance of stakeholder engagement of the board that has been formed by the founders, and of course very inspired by the founders themselves. Leaning on the third executive team that I have this project is about the importance of stakeholder engagement of the board that has been formed by the founders, and of course very inspired by the founders themselves. Leaning on
build something that is uniquely African yet still globally leading based on those partnerships?
Yeah, I think partnerships are critical as this comes about. Partnerships will continue to be critical to the success of ASG. We heard the Prime Minister talk about sort of African solutions to Africa's problems, but we don't live in a vacuum, right? And actually we are here today, partly because of the partnerships that were established from the beginning. We heard about the partnership with the MasterCard Foundation. We heard about the partnership with the Louis Kuan Yew School as well. And going forward, these will be critical. As we looked at the work, we of course looked at the partnership strategies. We'll have to have partnerships with educational institutions and partnerships in Rwanda, right, of course, across Africa, but also around the world, right? So whether it's, I see Freya with an ALU in Rwanda, whether it's with other public policy schools across the continent, because they do exist, some of these schools already today. So these will be critical. We'll have to have partnerships. I think Professor Mohalu talked about the research component. It's not just teaching, but there's a big research component to the school. So partnerships with some of the big research institutions, think tanks, the African Center for Economic Transformation, or Brookings, international think tanks. We'll need partnership with governments. I personally believe that every government in Africa should send the top 5 to 10 civil servants to the school every year, right? But how do you make that happen? You need to have partnerships with governments. You'll need partnerships with the private sector, right? We talked about executive education. Many of us tend to complain about engaging with governments, but how can you do that better? And how can the private sector come and learn on how to do that better? So we'll need it across the board. But when I think of partnerships, I think for me, the two things that are critical as we think about these partnerships. One is we need intentionality in these partnerships, and we need alignment. So we will need to be very, very intentional about who we want to partner with, right? What do we bring to the table? What do the partners bring to the table? I think too often in Africa, we have partners who come and offer things to us, and we just say yes, right? But we haven't really thought through about what do we need and what do we need to, what do we contribute. So the intentionality will be critical. And then alignment, where we heard again very clearly from His Excellency Haile Mariam around the raison d'être and the vision and the values of these schools. And the truth is not everybody's going to be aligned with that, right? So as we think about who to partner with, I would really encourage us to really think through making sure these partners were clear on who we want to partner with from an intention perspective, but also making very, very clear that these are partners who are aligned with this vision and the values of the school.
All right, it's fascinating you mentioned that if every African government sent 5 students to the school every year, you already from day one, you have almost 300 students enrolled that can afford to pay, so that the others that can't afford to pay, like Your Excellency you were talking about, which is something I'd like for you to explain a little bit. If your admission is need blind, so you're admitting the best students from across, well, most of the continent, even if they can't pay for it, so how are you paying for the school?
Yeah, I think I think I mentioned in my speech, this is a grand vision, and I'm pretty sure that this vision will be shared by many Africans and non-Africans who are friends to Africa. So I have never thought that money and funding has been a problem. There is lots of money out there. The way you try to mobilize that funding is the most important issue. So let me give you one example. We had a retreat of 50-something billionaires, HNOs, in Rwanda, Kigali, some 2 months ago or so. And they are seeking for something which can transform Africa, because they sensed that there is a need for some support they have to give, but they were asking questions what to do about it. How could the private sector can support this kind of processes? We presented our case, but nonetheless, I have never been, worried about the funding, because we are very sure there are a number of fundings that in Africa is coming for different works that being done in Africa, but this one is a vision that has to be financed, and I'm pretty sure we'll get that funding. Look, the Rwandese government has given us a campus, a full campus. And so why not other African governments? We can reach out to African governments, and we can reach out to the private sector, as I mentioned. We can reach out to the philanthropists. Yeah, I think you can see we also share the vision of MasterCard Foundation, because they want to create dignified, decent work for our young people. But without proper governance, that cannot happen. So they know that. So they are in line with us in this journey. But having said this, but I want to somehow clarify something. We do not want to conceal our problems by associating us with other continents. We can learn, we can share what good things has happened, best practices, and even from their failures, we can learn. But Africa has its own unique setting. Its history, its culture is unique. From rags to riches, a wealthy country in one generation. But Ghana is still there. Even disgraced, I mean, its GDP has, per capita income has gone down. So, yes, there is problem in South Korea, but I can't compare Ghanaian and South Korean problems as similar, no. If we don't admit this, I think we can't get out of this problem. I can compare Nigeria with Indonesia. They have the same oil production, they have the same population. Indonesia has at the highest middle income now, Nigeria is not. And if you see people below poverty line in Nigeria compared to Indonesia, where Indonesia was less in GDP and poverty line compared with Nigeria a generation ago. Yeah. But now Indonesia is somewhere there. These are Asian countries. I can't conceal that, yes, Indonesia is most corrupt country, Dr. Kabaruka, but I can't compare it with that of Nigeria. I'm not blaming Nigeria. I'm saying we have something African that we have to look into our own situation, but we shouldn't conceal that, yes, US has problems. Yes, it has problems. Its democracy is shaking, yes. And it has some problems there and here and there. There are good governance problems, yes, but it's a completely different story, a different setting. So I think we have to be very clear in this regard. We have to be very true to ourselves in order to solve our problems. And I think this point is very important, and we have to look into that.
All right, thank you, Professor Desalegn. This is the chance for you to ask questions. Please raise your hand, they will get a microphone to you. In the meantime, Dr. Kaberuka, now that you're on the board, but will you also maybe teach a class to atone for your 2 years at that other school? We'll be willing to forgive you after maybe 2 or 3 semesters.
With pleasure, with pleasure. If I'm invited, I might.
If you're invited, you will. Okay, Prof.
But
Professor Mugalu,
but can I say something
for a recruiting faculty?
No, I'm not looking for a job, but
a seminar.
Yeah, there's something I wanted to say here. The Philippines in the 60s was doing much better than many other Asian countries. The Philippines. It now has become an outlier almost in that region. Because we tend to compare Africa and Asia as if something is unique there. In my view, if you had asked me 20 years ago, I would say the Philippines would be actually the performer in the region. And something has happened there. The reason I'm saying this, I'm hoping that this school, under leadership of Professor Mahalu, will also try to figure out what are the lessons in Africa which can enlighten the rest of the world. It is not by accident that school is in Kigali. And our president worked very hard to make this case. I know Prime Minister Haile Mariam, but it is here not by accident. There are some things here which can enlighten the rest of the world. Not just to Africa. It is not by accident that school is in Kigali. I was at a meeting recently to make this case. I know Prime Minister Haile Mariam, but it is here not by corporations loading how Rwanda is combining simple technologies and community health workers to deliver health outcomes at a higher level than countries with better spend in per capita terms. So there are many things we have done wrong in Africa, oh for sure, tons of them. But there are also many things we can actually project to the rest of Africa and the rest of the world. And I want to end by saying the following. 2 weeks ago, I was in Mogadishu, believe it or not. Friends of mine think I was crazy. I was there for special mission. And one of the things which was exercising my mind, but how does a country survive for 40 years without a government? How does the private sector flourish in such an environment? Because on that particular day, the president had just inaugurated a 5-star hotel in Mogadishu. Can you imagine? I'm sure Prime Minister Haile Mariam, this is a neighborhood he knows very well. So the private sector in that country has shown how to operate in extremely difficult circumstances. Is that not a lesson for the world? Is that not a lesson for the world? It is.
It is.
Especially for our friends in the Middle East who are going through those challenges, or in Ukraine or somewhere else. If Rwanda can deliver great health outcomes at less than $85 per capita, which is the ideal spend in health, that is a big lesson for everyone. So that's why during COVID, for example, you found that countries like Rwanda, South Korea, Vietnam, and a few other people did better than Italy, especially the northern part of Italy, hugely rich part of Italy, did very badly on COVID outcomes. Rwanda did better than. So what I'm saying to you is that we have to accept things we have done wrong and fix them. It's a starting point. But then we have also to figure out what are those things we can scale up to other African countries, even within our own countries, and also to project to the rest of the world. That is the only point I'm making, Professor Kingsley. But if you give me the job, as Larry Mado says, to teach at your school, I will say this. But I want to say to you that I'm not looking for a job.
I know.
Thank you, sir. Let's get some questions in the audience. Introduce yourself and go for your question.
Hi, hello everyone.
Hi.
Yeah, my name is Kelechi, originally from Nigeria, and here now in Rwanda, also a Rwandese by default. Yeah. Well, as congratulations to this great feat. I think the board, everyone behind it, I am so happy, so excited to be part of this movement. I'm going to take a cue from Your Excellency, what you said about being honest. I think most of the time in Africa we have lived a lie to assume that things are right. I guess the idea behind this school is because there's a need, and then they have to provide a solution for that need. So there's a deficit in Africa. And that will take me to my questions. I have 2 questions. And one of those questions is, why is it that Africans are not doing well as a community? But as individuals, we are making huge success globally. We all know that there are 2 tools, powerful tools to make an impact in the society where we live. One of those tools is economically, and the other one is governance, because you have control, policies, and all that. And in these two things, tools, why is Africa lacking behind?
All right.
That takes me to the second question. Is Africa truly poor? Or is it a story, a narrative that is painted to hold Africa down?
Okay.
Until we begin to tell ourselves the truth, there will be no significant change. I think ASG should be changing the narratives instead of transforming governance, because you need to change the narrative from mindset shift.
Okay. Thank you, Kelechi. Can we get any others in the audience so we can take them together? There's one over there on the other left. Yes. Yes, go ahead.
All right. All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Somna Sambo. I'm a journalist with Arise News from Nigeria. Just two very short questions. The first one is, I'm very much interested, Dr. Kingsley Moghalu and the entire team, on the literature that will be used in this ASG, because most times the literature we use in training people in governance, it's Western-centric. And so we tend to forget the body of knowledge that we've got, across the continent, like we've had the former Prime Minister say.
Right.
That have been there for thousands of years. So if we're going to have a Western-centric sort of knowledge on governance, like other schools of governance do globally, then I think we would actually be getting into trouble. So there has to be something unique that's different about this African school.
And your
of
second
governance.
question,
and then
sir?
the second question has to do with rethinking leadership in Africa, because I am of the school of thought that some of elderly people, those who are of age in Africa, have been blackmailed so much that when the younger generation are being given power, we are not seeing the difference. Young people have got into government across Africa with the hope of changing their societies, but we are not seeing the difference.
What is your question?
So the question is, how do we tap from the huge resource of knowledge available from some of those who have stayed so long in power in Africa to see how we can modify something that works for us and not be blackmailed? Because the Western societies, as we see right now, are predominantly being governed by people in their 70s, 80s. So why is it that of Africa we're being told that it must be younger people, and when they get into power, they seem to be corrupted by even the West that we seem to want to copy?
All right. Thank you, sir. There's a question in the back. Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you very much.
It was on before. I think you turned it off. There you are.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. My name is Fatmata Sise. I work for UNDP here in Rwanda. It's indeed an exciting moment for us to be here to be talking about an African School of Governance. And for UNDP, this is absolutely remarkable, an agency that focuses a lot more on the work on governance. My question is very specific. On this school and the excitement we have around us, I'm curious to know how we're going to bridge policy and practice. That's because I believe we often know what we need to do and how to do it. We get to the positions, we don't do it. How do we hold that accountability to ensure? So my second question is around accountability to ensure that what we teach in this School of Governance is really what is practiced out there. So how are we going to bridge practice and policy? And how we're going to hold accountability to ensure that we do not only have a good school renowned from its students, because the essence of this school is we want to see a difference.
Right.
And how can we ensure that difference is seen? Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. I can only take one more before we wrap it up. Who's... you decide. I've given her so much power. This gentleman... yes.
I want to thank you so much for choosing me. My question is direct to the president, because he said a wonderful statement, and I quote.
What's your name, sir? You didn't tell us your name.
This is Meshach Katusime, Associate Professor at Kabara University in Uganda.
Right.
That this is a legacy project, and that's right, and I want to believe you. And a lot has been said about the vision, the mission, and the objectives of ASG. But one thing that you have not said is on the issue of the teaching and learning methods. There are a lot of schools of governance around the world, including here in Africa. I don't know how you are going to distinguish, we are going to distinguish ourselves from others, so that we can be able to deliver the education that we have promised. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Kansime. I think academic to academic, several of the questions discuss the curriculum and what your plan around that is. So this is a good chance to go into it, Prof.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you to everyone for all the wonderful questions. Let me state, without taking too long, the vision that I have to realize the vision of the founders. You see, because there's a vision at the top, then the operationalization of the vision requires actually a vision for that operationalization. And one of the key things about the ASG from the vision of the founders is its ambition to be world-class in its standards and its impact. You cannot be world-class as a university if you do not have three things. You have to have an outstanding and impactful curriculum. You have to have outstanding students, and you have to have outstanding faculty. On the curriculum, in terms of what people learn, we have had to go through an exercise in order to get accreditation. This happened, this exercise was undertaken before I joined as president. In our drive for excellence, and it's very good that the Minister of Education is here, I want to say that the vision of the founders for this institution cannot be achieved if we are limited to the framework of the current regulatory authority, because ASG is for Africa. It's not just for Rwanda. What does this mean in practice? That right now I have initiated as president a fundamental review of our curriculum in order to make sure that it captures the vision, both in terms of originality of the texts. Sumner asked that question. So we have to update the material, the sources that we use to teach our students, and make sure that it's genuinely as African as possible. We're going to do case studies of some of these wonderful initiatives. One cow per family. We can do a case study on that. The Umuganda system, Ubuntu. We can do these are African concepts that we need to integrate into our curriculum and bring out for our students and for the world. We will do this. In terms of the knowledge base, we will use two important African knowledge bases, or three. One is our culture. Two is our written knowledge. And here we have so many of us in this room who have written original thinking. I, for one, wrote a book called Emerging Africa: How the Global Economy's Last Frontier Can Prosper and Matter. where I queried globalization from an African worldview perspective. Agnes talked about the African identity, and I emphasized it very much in that book. So Imagine Africa is going to be required reading at the ASG. No student will live here without studying that book, among others. So, and then we're going to use African leaders and their own experience. Here, we already know who our special faculty will be, starting from our co-founder, and if possible, our co-founders. There's no better learning you can get from people with this level of leadership experience and achievements. You don't need, although we will study the rest of the world, people like Dr. Donald Kaberuka. Yeah, he doesn't need a job, but we need his experience. So definitely he is on our faculty. So these are the ways we're going to make sure that we address the concerns about our curriculum and make sure it's not just some academic, some turgid, traditional type of curriculum. No. I have been in government in Africa, and I know the problems that governments and government officials face in making and executing policy. So our curriculum will address those things. How do you frame public policy? How do you execute public policy? What about strategy? What about risk management? What about public-private partnerships? What about the relationship between the state, business, and the society? What about the negotiation of contracts for natural resources? These are practical problems we face in governance in Africa. I, as president, will make sure that our curriculum reflects these things so that our students are actually fit for purpose. And there we will ask for the cooperation of the government of Rwanda, that when we come back to the government, to the minister, and to HEC with a revised curriculum before we start in September, that you will support us to make sure that this is approved. Thank you.
Right. Your Excellency, there were some philosophical and some practical questions, some of which you can address. And I think Kelechi's question was especially interesting. It reminded me, I'm from Kenya, and Jomo Kenyatta was the founding president of Kenya, used to say at the time of independence that we were fighting three things in Swahili: umaskini, ujinga, na ufukara. So basically ignorance, disease, and poverty. And it appears that even today, 60 plus years after independence, many African nations still fighting those same three things.
Yeah. Thank you, Larry. I think, first of all, I can assure you that because of our skin color, we are not cursed. So we have still a room to be equals to anyone, humanity, in the world. So having said this, why Africa has lagged behind and collectively, but there are best minds individually, and so we have to look into that. I think it's historic, and we have to look into African history to understand that. So that's why we are, suspended, and we do not get really what matters for us. So the school has to deal with African history and culture, so to understand. So it starts from the slave trade. And, since then, Africans were able to develop other continents. The slave labor is the one which made other continents to develop, because that was a huge addition, resource to those continents. But we have to look into that. What happened? Then, is there no room for us to improve from time to time? So I think we have to look into the whole history and the journey Africans has come from and address those issues. So I think it's not just something which I can answer, a prescription,
right.
Just this is the answer. I can't say that. Because we have to learn properly what it is. But the fact is, we are behind.
Okay. Dr. Kalibata, as you answer some of those questions, also your closing remarks, like I said, some were philosophical, some were more practical. You're on the ASG board, so you're...
No, I mean, I can't put my mind to any particular question you want me to answer, but I just wanted to call out, maybe to echo what Archie said at some point. He really emphasized the point of partnerships and different partnerships that the institution will need. I guess in the world we are in today, as people come through ASG, understanding and being equipped to be good partners to the world is going to be one of the most critical things. But the other one is going to be to look at every person that lives in poverty as a missed opportunity. If we can help our young leaders as they come through this school to understand that the reason we go into these worlds and you find nearly everybody's in that city is because they've invested in people. So if we can teach people that investing in people is how we invest in our economies, I think we'll get it. But I feel sometimes it's about, I've made it, it's okay. No, it's about that person who is not part of the economy. Right. That is the most important person we must focus on. And that's a value we must get into our young people.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Professor Hajar?
Thank you so much. I would like to highlight two facts that are very embarrassing. Number one, these illegal immigrants. I come from Tunisia. Thousands of people go to the El Dorado, Europe, finding jobs, etc. And I think they will find the paradise, but a lot of them come back dead in the coasts of Libya and Tunisia. Right. And this is very embarrassing. So the future is in Africa, and we need to invest in Africa in our brains. Second fact, these contradictions between two things. We are the richest continent at the same time. We are begging, we are waiting for partners. We are belong to the banks, the world banks, etc. And at the same time, we do not have any manufacture of arms. However, we have most of the conflicts, interns and international, are in our continent. We are the youngest people in the whole world, but the one who are leading us are more than 60 years old. So all these contradictions together are sometimes, as said, why we are succeeding individually but not collectively. I think number one is the role of education, and this is one of our role as the African School of Governance is to transfer the know-how, the knowledge. Governance and leadership is not only a mission and a vision, it's a whole art, it's a know-how, it's something that we have to believe in, and this is important to be done now. Number two, maybe also the role of women, youth, and the civil society, so that we can make this balance between the one who govern and the one who are governed. Number three, I think also we have not to mess the international developments in technology and high technology, and I think also with our school we need also to share these IT knowledge, etc. Number four is also about ceasing to be selfish. It is important, back again to your question, Pan-Africanism. This is the main important idea that have to be highlighted in our school. Because if we do just love each other and we think about the future, we will gain, we will be winner. And this is very important, to seize our selfish interests and to think about Africa as a whole, as an integrated voice and solidarity voice. Number five, and this is the most important, and I adhere totally to my sister, it's about our mindset, about our brains. And she said we have to seize this, to decolonize our mentalities and to trust ourselves and to give the young people the opportunity to be brightful leaders, because they can make the change. So in a mess, I think it's important that we put our African DNA, our intellectual property to all our skills, and we are able to trust what we can do, and to give a dream to these young people who cease to dream about the better future of Africa. I think it's important that we can just offer this dream and to build it radically with all the means we can, and one of them is education, and this is definitely a pillar of changement, and you can see in the logo, inspiring change and transforming governance. This is how we can succeed together. Thank you.
Right, and speaking of dreams, That goes to your first point about the people risking their lives to cross the Mediterranean to try and get to Europe because they don't feel they have a chance at upward mobility in their countries. As a Somali poet, War Sanshire, says, no one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. They're only leaving because they don't think the societies where they live have a chance for them to build something out of themselves, right? And that's hopefully the education and all of the things we're talking about can help change that so no one has to make that perilous journey across the Mediterranean. Dr. Kaberuka, final comments.
Thank you very much. I'm over 60, so I should be careful what I say. But you made a mistake, Larry. Mzee Kenyatta did not say what you said. He said, maradhi, ujinga na umaskini.
Okay, correcting my Swahili, all right.
Now, since I grew up in Tanzania, I also want what Mwalimu Nyerere added.
Yes.
There's a difference between ujinga na upumbavu. So my non-Swahili speakers here, what Mwalimu Nyerere was saying, there's a difference between ignorance
and stupidity.
Knowing what to do, which can be collected by knowledge. But there is upumbavu, knowing what to do and you don't do it. That's what is an important difference. But that said, I do want to offer my warm congratulations to the founders of the school, to everyone who is involved, to everybody who is supporting this enterprise. There'll be a lot of work to do. We learn along the way as we do things. There's no perfect formula. And so mistakes will be made at the beginning. I just want to urge everyone to stay the course, because this is an important undertaking for Africa. And I do hope that Kingsley, as you shape the curriculum, please balance between navel-gazing, i.e. us, and the world out there. And the world out there for Africa, as you and I know, will be shaped by 4 things. I don't know how you integrate them in the curriculum. That is the demographics of the continent. No need to elaborate. It will be climate change, it will be the digital economy, and it will be geopolitics. If you figure out how to integrate those 4, to give the people who are coming here that capacity to go and project the kind of Africa we need, I think people will be grateful to you and the founders for this. But you have our best wishes. Thank you.
Actually, nodding, so I gotta give you a chance to also say something.
I thought you skipped me like you skipped Donald Kaberuka earlier. But no, I mean, my only point is there was a reflection on leadership, or whether we should learn from our older leaders. I'm coming from Cameroon. I'm not sure that's what we should do. But having said that, I do think, having spent a lot of years now with Fred trying to build this next generation of leaders, I think for me, what's important is sort of ethical and execution-minded leaders. And I think if you look at all of our countries, where you have that, things have changed. We all love coming here, right? Yeah. You look at, Benin, now you look at even little Togo, you look at Morocco. And so for me, I think that's what we need. And to the extent I'm, hugely excited about the opportunity for this school to build such leaders. And I think the future is bright. I can imagine 10, 15 years from now when leaders coming through this school have become leaders in their countries, and we have a widespread number of folks around the continent who sort of learn from here and starting to put that in practice. We're going to get there. Very excited about it. So looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. What has been fascinating about this conversation is the people involved in the formation of the school don't all have the same thought. There's robust debate and disagreement, and I think that's the foundation for a solid academic footing, right? If they all agreed and thought the same, then there's no point for anybody to be involved with this. So thank you so much for bringing your thoughts, your insight, your experience to this conversation. Congratulations, all the best with the African School of Governance. Please give them a big round of applause. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you.
Dion.
Thank you.
Oh, there's a picture with the panel, yes.
Yes, we're going to have a group picture. We're inviting the photographers, if you could kindly just come here. And we invite the panelists and our moderator, if you could all stand. We're going to take the picture standing. And then we'll have the photographers guide us on how they'd like the positioning of it. class, we all soaked in the wealth, the knowledge by our amazing at ASG once class begins. We're now going to have a look at the demonstration of its home. We've heard more about it, but where will it be located? How is it going to look like? And I'd like to invite Professor Kingsley to come back, the president of the African School of Governance, to come back to the podium and just give us a demonstration of the campus so that we all live here knowing when we start class, how it will really be. You're welcome. Once again, let's give him a warm round of applause as he comes to the podium.
I invite you to behold our accommodations, hopefully from July. The campus of the African School of Governance. This building was formerly the old RDB, the Rwanda Development Board headquarters, that the government of Rwanda has graciously donated to ASG to support us. And so that's what our campus is going to look like when the reconstruction is finished. The African School of Governance building is in the Gasabo district, in the Remera sector, Nyarutarama cell, Gishishu village, occupying 2 plots of land. The building is easily accessible by everyone, surrounded by roads on all sides. And this is a very good thing. So this is in the city. And it's a bit different from many of the universities that are here in Kigali, which are in the Kigali Economic Zone area and the Kigali Innovation space. So, but I think for our purposes, our location is very perfect. So the building features 8 floors, including a basement and a ground floor, with a total grass floor area of about 9,856 square meters. The outside area is composed of outdoor learning spaces and parking. So the building is composed, has different components, and each floor will have washrooms. One, from the ground, you have the basement component. So that will have the archive, the staff lounge, the cafeteria, the general store, and the ICT room. The second level, that's the ground floor. Security checkpoint, reception desk, student affairs office, the medical center, lactation, and wellness room will be on the ground floor. We will have a campus bank, and we will have a mini supermarket on that floor. We will also have a kitchen, a servery, and dining rooms on that floor. Number 3, the first floor components. There will now be 4 classrooms with a capacity of 20 students each, total of 80 seats, 1 classroom with a capacity for 33 students, and 1 lecture room with a capacity for 100 people. Now, when we recruit, we are looking at a cohort of about 100 people to start the ASG. Some of the courses that we'll be teaching will be required people. Will be required courses. And so you must have a room that can take everybody that is a member of the cohort for the required courses. For the elective courses, there will be 20 to 30 people. So this is what has informed this design. There's a breakout room and a lounge, a media lab with a capacity for about 50 seats, and then professors' offices and professors' offices. The second floor, again, will have something similar, but there will be an office for the academic registrar, and there will be study nooks, pods, professors' offices, and a future area for expansion. The third floor is where we will have the research centers and institutes, the academics, the library, and professors' offices. On the fourth floor, you will have the Vice President for Academic Affairs, academic staff, and future expansion areas. On the fifth floor, you'll have the Vice President for Finance and Operations staff, the President's staff, main boardrooms, ASG Foundation staff. The ASG Foundation will also be accommodated in this building, a meeting room, and areas for future expansion. On the sixth floor, you will have the office of the president of the ASG, direct staff working with the ASG president, the ASG Foundation Executive Secretary's office, 2 boardrooms, the office of the chancellor of the ASG. We're yet to appoint the founders, of course, will identify the appropriate person to be appointed as the chancellor of the ASG, and then a waiting area and a terrace. So that's just to give you a very brief and general flavor of what we aspire. We hope that this project will be completed by July, because we expect to open our campus in September. So, ladies and gentlemen, the ASG campus. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Professor Kingsley, for taking us through that and for inviting us into this space. It will be fully equipped. It will create a hub of transformation that is going to be a home to some of the brightest minds here in Africa. We are really on the verge of truly something amazing, and the creation of this institution by both His Excellency President Paul Kagame and His Excellency Haile Mariam really reflects their steadfast belief in the power of education to unlock Africa's potential and ensure good governance for generations to come. Now, as we head towards the close of this, just join me in giving a warm round of applause to our founders, as well as to each and every one of you who is part of this journey. Thank you all. A warm round of applause. Thank you. We have come to the end of today's program, but it's really just the beginning of a journey where we reimagine and redefine leadership here across Africa. To cement and capture this moment, we will have a photo session with some of our distinguished guests. The photo session will be happening right outside. We have a photo wall, and we'll have a protocol that will be guiding us to where it is. I will invite the ASG co-founder, ASG President, MasterCard Foundation, distinguished ministers present, ASG Foundation Council members, the advisory group members, as well as the ASG team to kindly just do join us at the photo wall. We'll have protocol that will be guiding us where it is. For the rest of us, we encourage you to continue the conversations. This is truly the start of something remarkable, and it will not end in this room. We're going to have a networking lunch that will be served at the Auditorium Club, and we also value our media partners who are here with us. Kindly do register at the desk right behind, and right after lunch we also invite you to come back here for a press conference with the president of ASG. Once again, thank you all. Do enjoy your lunch, and remember, the lunch is not the end, it's just the beginning. Let's continue the conversation. Thank you all.